Manx Radio's 1 to 3, tendered by Ramsey Garden Centre. Open 7 days a week.
I think Paul Chase has got brownie points for that one. Paul from Financial Options with us. That's for your team, isn't it? But someone in particular, you said.
Yeah, for Aidan. Yep.
Aidan. So Aidan's just a big U2 fan.
Massive. Yep,
okay.
Yep.
Well, hopefully enjoyed that one because there's a lot of good U2 songs, you know, Paul.
That's right.
You might have picked the wrong one.
I probably have.
But you made an effort. That's
exactly.
the important thing. Well, listen, you're in today because we're going to be talking about insurances, and you sent me some information earlier with a poster which I just thought was so striking. First of all, it had a picture of a puppy dog on it.
That's
which,
right.
You know, I mean, that grabs my attention every single time. But it had the tagline on it: we are more likely to insure our pets than ourselves.
That's right. A third of all British people are more likely to insure their pet than they are to actually look after themselves, which is a crazy statistic, but it's true.
And do you know what? I can totally believe that because, you know, back in the day I had a dog and no longer with us, sadly. We miss her very much. However, I was very fortunate in that I did have pet insurance for her just as well because she kept eating things and so was in and out of the vets and needed cover a lot. However, you're absolutely right. At that time, I did not have insurance for myself. It is crazy, isn't it? Especially when, you know, I'm talking about vet bills. When you think of that, the equivalent for us is obviously going to the GP.
Exactly.
And, you know, needing medical care. And at a time like this, with everything that's going on with Manx Care, I'm sure there's a lot of people coming to see you about the likes of private insurance, medical insurance.
Yep, that's absolutely right. I mean, health insurance is one of the big topics that we're talking to people about at the moment, just making sure that you've got your own provision if the worst should happen. But the big thing really about people insuring their pets is it's something that it's tangible. When you're talking about or thinking about yourself, then people don't like to think these things can happen, but unfortunately they really do.
They do, absolutely. And, you know, when it comes to, I suppose, maybe part of the reason why people are reluctant is they assume that these things cost a huge amount of money to get any sort of cover that actually means anything.
No, that's right. But that's one of the first conversations we have with people when we're trying to explain to them about the different types of cover that's available, is actually the premiums can be really reasonably cheap. And life cover can start from £5 a month. And it's just to get some sort of quality cover in place. You don't have to go for the big expensive products which are out there.
And I'm guessing you can kind of tailor them to yourself because I think there's all sorts of different sort of add-ons you can go for, isn't there?
That's right. And there's certain add-ons that you can make to the policies which actually magnify and maximise the cover that you've got. So even if you took a basic £5, £10 policy, you can add extra bits onto that which can make the really worthwhile having.
And it is tricky because, you know, we talk about the fact it's very difficult at the moment. People are going through really tricky financial times. But when it comes down to it, if you don't have your health, you haven't got anything, have you?
Absolutely. And you've got to protect that health because if you can't work and you don't have an income coming in, then it's going to make the situation even worse. So it's really is one of those situations that you maybe think that you can't afford it, but really you can't afford not to have it. And
this sort of brings to light something that you're going to be talking about in a seminar coming up, which is the protection gap. Can you just explain what that actually means?
Yeah. So there is... It's pretty widely known that there is a protection gap across the UK, and that's reflected on the Isle of Man as well. I mean, some statistics from the Financial Conduct Authority back in 2022. I haven't got the updated ones; they've not been released yet. But only 29% of UK adults actually had life insurance. So that's only 29%. All of those people with mortgages, all those people with families, and only 29% had life insurance. Only 13% have critical illness cover, and only 6% have income protection. So that's a lot of the population which is not covered. So when the worst should happen, unfortunately, they're going to be struggling.
You see, you say that, but then I think there is this kind of preconceived idea that if the worst does happen, the insurers won't actually pay out anyway.
Absolutely, and I'm pleased to say we've actually got a representative from Aviva joining us later in the month at our seminar that you mentioned to dispel those myths and actually to talk about the amount of payouts that they actually do make. And I think that people will be surprised to hear that the insurance companies do genuinely pay out, and they actually want to pay out because it makes the insurance valid.
Okay, well then also I suppose there is also an idea that if you do claim for something, that it might then actually be a bad thing in the long run for your insurance because it might end up costing more premium wise, or, you know, sort of if you do make a claim, does that put you in a bad position?
I think basically it depends on the circumstances and the situation, but ultimately if something's wrong with you and you make a claim, then that's what the point of the policy was in the first place. So largely we would have ensured that you'd had enough cover in the first instance. So if you are making a claim, then your mortgage could be paid off, your income could be protected for that period when you're unable to work. If you suffer a critical illness, then, you know, there's some money there which you could potentially use for private medical treatment. So we make sure you're adequately covered in the first place.
And what about the fact we're on the Isle of Man? Does that make it difficult?
It makes it more difficult. We only have 2 term assurance providers on the island. I won't mention the names of the companies, but we have 2 providers only. We have a couple more that offer income protection. So it is limited in terms of what we can do, but that makes it even more essential that they come and speak to an advisor so we can find out exactly what sort of services and products that they need to suit their circumstances.
And when you say speak to an advisor, one of the reasons we like talking to you is because you do offer free financial advice for people, and the amount of people that have come through the doors of Financial Options at various times in their life, whether it's because they're looking at investing, getting a mortgage, like you say, talk about insurance, all of those things, and you do offer that. And you must have, as a result of that, met some really interesting people, but no doubt spoken to a lot of people who are struggling, and are just intrigued to know what are some of the biggest issues that you see more regularly coming through your door.
Yeah, well, we're seeing people that maybe haven't taken an income protection if they're unable to work, and therefore they may be struggling to cover their bills or struggling to cover their mortgage. We can certainly help them, and we can work with them with the lender and talk to them about budgeting and about what they can actually do with that. But if there was an income protection policy in place, it would have just transformed that position. Also, people, sadly, that get critically ill, suffering from cancer or from other illnesses, again, if there was a critical illness policy in place, a lump sum is paid out. If they don't have that, then maybe they're unable to work, maybe their income sort of stops, and again, we need to help them manage their finances at that point.
Okay, well, we'll talk to you more in just a moment, but if anyone wants to come in and speak to you and get this sort of free financial advice, how do they do that?
Well, we've got our website, financialoptions.co.im. We've got a Facebook page, and also we're based on Prospect Hill, so please just pop in and see us.
Yeah, so more from Paul in a moment. If you've got any questions for him, 166 or 177. Anyway, if you have just tuned in, we are chatting with Paul Chase. It's lovely to have you with us again, and we're talking mainly about life insurance. There's also about medical insurance, health insurance, and someone did just text in, NHS? ? It's kind of why we're talking about this in a way, really, isn't it? Because, you know, that things are getting difficult now, aren't they?
Exactly. It's one of those topics at the minute which is constantly in the news. We heard it on the news before about the strain and the stresses that NHS are under. Private medical insurance is one solution if you wanted to sort of skip the waiting list in terms of the NHS and get your medical treatment a lot quicker, then that is one option. Also, just the pure fact of having life and critical illness cover in place should the worst happen, just to make sure that you know your life can continue on. Certainly not unaffected, certainly if you have a critical illness, but to the best that you can do.
And as we're saying, you know, these companies do pay out. I mean, if you were sort of trying to sum up the key points of what we're talking about today, how would you do that, Paul?
Everybody needs insurance. Even if you think that some of our wealth clients come in with money that they've got invested, they say, well, I don't need insurance, I've got money sat there. Well, you need to protect your wealth, because otherwise you're going to use it to cover your medical bills and you're going to cover everything else. If you've got a family, you certainly need to protect them and make sure that they can continue on after you if you were to sadly pass away. And for critical illness cover, it's just a no-brainer. It is more expensive, the critical illness side, but it's more expensive for a reason. It's basically because more people will suffer from critical illnesses. It doesn't have to be expensive. Come and see somebody. It's free advice, and we just make sure that you're covered adequately. And
that's the thing, as we were saying at the top of the show, I think a lot of people assume this is going to be way out of their budget and it's going to be too expensive. And for some it might be, but if you can just manage those few quid a month, I think it could be really, really helpful for you. We did mention briefly that you have got a seminar which is going to explain a lot more about this. When and where is it?
Yep, so we're holding a seminar on Thursday, the 20th of February at 1 p.m. at the Villa Marina at the Colonnade Suite. We've got a guest speaker coming over from Aviva to answer your questions on about whether insurance companies do pay out and the claims. And also we're going to provide a presentation on the whole different range of insurances which you can get, life insurance, critical illness, income protection, and how it can suit you. And then afterwards there'll be a session there with some of our advisors that you can speak to directly if you'd want to.
And do make those claims, because they will pay out, from what Paul says.
Absolutely.
As ever, thanks for joining us. And again, just a reminder, how should people get in touch if they want some free advice?
Yeah, well, through our Facebook page, through our website, but also for this particular event, if they would like to go on the Eventbrite page, they can book themselves a space on there. Okay,
excellent stuff. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Get another song in your head for the next time you're with us that we can play for someone else in the office.
Manx Radio's 1 to 3, tended by Ramsey Garden Centre. Open 7 days a week.